Up Your Game with CMO Coaches is for current and aspiring chief marketing officers. Each episode will feature one of our experienced CMO coaches focusing on a topic that they are passionate about to help you up your game.
Well, today we have Carilu Dietrich, a former CMO and notably head of marketing that took Atlassian public. These days, she's an advisor to CEOs and CMOs of high-growth B2B tech companies. Current and past clients include companies such as Sprout Social, Bill.com, ActiveCampaign, 1Password, Miro, and more. She writes a blog on hyper-growth leadership at Carilu.com with insights, templates, and more. Well, today's topic is Up Your Game, working with the CEO and the board. And as you know, in today's fast-paced business environment, a CMO's ability to effectively communicate with leadership can make or break marketing's impact and the CMO's career, frankly. Our discussion today will dive into the nuances of these critical relationships, offering insights on the unique perspectives of CEOs and board members, how to craft impactful communications and presentations that resonate with them, how to be seen as more strategic. By the end of this episode, you will have practical strategies to more effectively communicate your message, elevate your influence, and drive a bigger strategic impact in your company. Let's begin by exploring why this topic is so crucial for today's CMOs. So, Carilu, why is effective communication with the CEO and the board crucial for CMO?
Well, communication with your board is like one of those critical executive skills that you never learn in school, but one of the most important for your career and your career progression. So we'll talk a little bit about who's on the board today, but only 4% of board members are from marketing. So the overall marketing aptitude of the board is not particularly significant. Boards are formed to help the company with strategy, with finance and governance, and with operations. Marketing is a piece of that, but not really a central piece. And so for marketers to adapt the way they think about the world, the metrics they talk about, and the way they talk about to the board is really crucial. And getting that right starts with talking to your CEO in the right way as well.
Awesome. Well, it's not only important, it's crucial. How does this impact the company's overall strategy and success going forward?
As we're growing up as marketers, we really become experts in marketing. Many people will learn all sorts of different functions, or they'll become a fantastic expert in one of the primary swim lanes of marketing. But once you get to a senior level, it's less about marketing and it's more about being a business executive. Marketing is the paintbrush that you carry to help contribute to the art of your business, but it's just one aspect. And as an advisor to CEOs and CMOs, one of the biggest problems I see is that things that seem like a marketing problem are actually a company strategy problem. So a problem around trying to target too many different customer profiles, about trying to take on too many new products or product categories, all sorts of different problems with differentiation or doing something that customers really love. If the product's not good enough, sometimes it shows up in marketing as not enough leads. Anyway, back to the core point, it's important for the marketer to bring everything they know about the market as the external facing executive in the company, everything they know about customers, everything they know about competitors, everything they know about market trends and technology that's affecting marketing and the whole business. It's critical you bring that to the table so that you can help the executive team make better decisions and have a better company strategy.
I love it. Well, we're talking about the board. Let's talk about the audience. Who is the board? Who makes up a board in these types of organizations, and what's their primary concerns?
I think we're talking mostly on this podcast to people in commercial for-profit companies, but all sorts of different organizations have boards. You can be on the board of a nonprofit, you can be on the board of your HOA, you can be on the board of a public company or a private company, VC-backed, PE-backed. The board is basically a group of experts and specialists and interested parties that you gather to help give the company good advice, good governance and oversight, and in the case of a for-profit company to hire and fire the CEO. The board members are made up often in for-profit companies of investors at the early stage and later of top executives, often CEOs, often CFOs, chief financial officers. And that's because the primary responsibilities of the board are to hire and fire the CEO to get the leadership right and to work on the compensation of top executives, to provide financial governance and oversight to make sure the company is being responsible, and to help provide oversight and inspection into the operational plan. Because the goal is to provide oversight to make sure that the shareholders in a for-profit company are being taken care of, that the right decisions are being made, not to, in the worst cases, fraud or misleading financial pyramids. But even in good cases, that the company is just making a really good use of the investment to get the most return on investment of that money, of the shareholders, if it's individual shareholders, or the pension fund, or the investment bank, or the venture capitalist, or the private equity firm. And so a group of people who are executives, experts in the industry, investors, or other experienced leaders will be on a board of a private public company, of an HOA even, or a nonprofit as well.
Got it. Well, so if we compare the board's perspective to the CEO's perspective, how do they compare and contrast?
So it's really important as a CMO to get in alignment with your CEO as you're talking to your board. And this is because your job is to help support and inform the strategy. The board is looking longer term. So one of the biggest mistakes lots of marketers make is talking too much about this quarter's performance or last quarter's performance. The board is looking farther out. They want to know, did you meet the performance this quarter? Why or why not? Are you going to meet next quarter's? Why or why not? Are you going to make the performance goals for this year? Why or why not? But even more important, they want to know, what are your recommendations to affect the future growth of the company? What are you going to do to make us better next year, in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years out? How are you thinking about acquisitions? How are you thinking about unexpected market disruptions? How are you thinking about new product categories? What's really useful to get better at communicating the board is to think like an investor. And when you listen to the earnings calls for a lot of public companies, sometimes they have a great quarter. We exceeded expectations. We said we were going to grow 30% and we grew 35%. But then if they bring down forecasts for the future and say, but the market is tough and our industry is tough and there's lots of unknowns, we don't think we're going to grow as fast as we did this year, next year. And also, we don't even think we're going to grow as fast as we said we were before. Their stock price gets punished because people take their money out and want to put it into something that has bigger and better growth opportunities. Everyone's thinking about their investment the way, we think about bank rates or if you can get 2% at one bank, but you can get 5% at another bank, you'd like to take your money out and put it in the 5%. And basically, this is what's happening at a very large strategic financial size in public companies. So what's critical is to make sure that you're thinking farther ahead, which is what the board wants. And then the CEO is focused on operational excellence and thinking ahead. So the CEO really needs to make sure that you're going to hit the number for the year. And so talking to your CEO, you can sometimes bring your timescale closer in than when talking to the board. But really, you need to be talking a little bit about both with both audiences.
Well, if we think about just key principles that you need to keep in mind when you're communicating to either the CEO or the board, like what are some of those kind of key things to keep in mind?
The first and most important thing is to be strategic. So a lot of marketers err when they try to bring in lots and lots of different marketing reports. The board doesn't really care about MQLs or contacts in the database. The board is thinking about revenue. And so how is what you're doing contributing directly to revenue? And how are you thinking about this growth? So the first point is to be strategic. It's really important for CMOs to bring insights to the table so they get invited to the conversation. If you're just reporting on MQL's feeding pipeline, sometimes the CRO gets invited and you never even join a board meeting. So many top CMOs position themselves as the voice of the customer. They use the market information they're gathering from customer surveys, from win-loss reports, from analyst interviews. A number of these things I'm talking about in these terms are from B2B tech, but it's the same in B2C. I think Mike Linton is also in this series and talks about his experience at many different, very large companies. And he called himself the voice of the customer. He used the customer perspective to bring it to the executive team and bring it to the leadership team to help inform trade-offs and decisions and investment choices.
Well, and we're thinking about, the board and the CEO. Is there any tailoring that we need to do to address the CEO versus the board?
There's a couple things that are in common with each that are critical for executive communications. The first is being really clear and brief. So a huge mistake marketers will make is having many, many slides for the board deck. When the board sometimes, and I actually sit on the board of a private company, and in my very first board meeting, I got 127 slides and 3 deep dive documents that were 30 pages or longer. And I realized all the advice that had been given to me over the years around our job is to assimilate the most important information, most important metrics, and filter for them what they need to know to make the big decisions. So clear, brief, strategic, and then very metrics focused. So how can you show, not tell? And you don't want to hit them over the head with 30 pages of analysis on metrics, but you really want to synthesize the most important metrics. Can you show your organic traffic, your paid traffic, your MQL pattern, and your pipeline pattern all on a chart that kind of show their growth rates in some sort of consolidated view so that you can really see, are we up and to the right on all of these? Or is there something that's lower than we were expecting? So concise metrics. They also want to see consistent metrics. The closer you can get to a dashboard that's consistent for every board deck, the happier they'll be. Because you say, this is my goal, this is what I'm tracking, this is how I'm going to do it. And then the next time you come back, you say, this was the goal I told you, this is how we did against that goal, and here's how I'm going to adapt the strategy to grow faster or address issues. So clear, strategic, clear and brief, metrics driven, and consistent. Those are the most important, both for the CEO and for the board.
We talked about those the myriad of documents and presentations to the board. What's the ideal structure for a board presentation from a CMO?
So the format I like to use most and recommend is to start with the market view. There's a whole movement in the B2B tech marketing world talking about, should chief marketing officers rename themselves to chief market officers? It's not about the execution of all the tech tactics. It's really about thinking about the market and being the leader that's helping the company think forward. And for some of these CMOs who are embracing this, that can involve taking a much more significant role in the strategy team, being much more involved in M&A, really hiring on your team to have people who are collecting the right market insights to inform the board. And so I've found that as I've worked with different CMOs or had CMO friends who ascribe to this vision of the chief market officer, that by adding the market information to the front of their presentation, that actually is so celebrated by the board, who is not as deep in your market as you are and needs that context, and also becomes much more of the conversation. Because really, if you do these next pieces right, which are have a consistent dashboard of your metrics that says what you were going to do, measures it against it, has context of your pacing. Are you at 100%? Are you at 80%? Maybe shows your year over year so they can see trending. If you have this consistent metrics, which is the next and most important thing, it kind of becomes more of a checkbox, the metrics slides, depending, and you're talking more about the strategy, which includes the market dynamics. Like, why are sales closing so slowly? Like, what about what's happening in the market is causing those metrics to be different than what we expected? So first, market context. Second, metrics checkboard, metrics dashboard that answers those questions I said before. How'd you do this quarter? How are you doing on pipeline for next quarter? How do you think we're going to end the year? If I gave you $1 million, where would you spend it to accelerate growth? That's kind of the core of the metrics fiduciary responsibility. And then you can have additional slides that maybe have some of your biggest strategic changes and levers. Are you going to double down in content or events? Are you going to launch a new product that's going to require a whole new focus for the company? How's that going to work? Sometimes you can have a couple slides that highlight the great work you've done. It's always critical to marketing. And in fact, I got obsessed with trying to learn to be good at board decks, because when I ran awareness advertising at Oracle, so much of my work was in the board deck for Larry Ellison, because I worked on all the sexy things, the sports sponsorships and the movie and the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and even all of our Google and digital, where we were launching on every new platform as it came out. And so at Oracle, it was very much marketing, and highlighting what was amazing. And at Atlassian, which was a very different company and approach, it was much more about metrics and perspective on what kind of tests we were running and how those tests were proceeding, and if we thought we could get a bigger growth lever out of different investments and tests. So different boards and different CEOs at different times want different things. But the market, your metrics, your strategy, and your highlights are a great place to start.
Well, we've got this board together now. What are some of the that you hear or have maybe even experienced the common pitfalls of a CMO when they're presenting to the board?
One of the biggest problems is having your numbers wrong. So we know that marketing has really become a metrics-oriented business. And again, if we put ourselves in the mindset of our investors, be they venture capitalists or individual mom and pops who invest in the internet, they want to make money back. And so understanding the metrics of how our activities convert to revenue is very critical for the CMO to be taken seriously by chief executive officers and chief financial officers and investors who are sitting on the board. So showing activity but not outcomes, or not tying your activities to revenue, big mistake. Getting your numbers wrong, dangerous, because this is generally a right-brained room of people who started as financial analysts and will pick out any errors in calculations. So that's another one. But joking aside, alignment with your CEO and CRO, especially Chief Revenue Officer. So again, kind of from the angle of business to business, but I think this could be true in B2C as well, with your partnerships or with your field distribution or with your regional distribution sales regions. You've got to have the same numbers. You can't be pointing fingers. The job of the board meeting is not to air laundry, but to show that you are a competent executive team with a good plan. And even if you don't have all the answers, you really understand the problems. You have some hypotheses for how you're going to solve them. And you elicit confidence in your ability to run the business. So if you have different numbers than the sales team, if you're blaming each other for conversion rates going down, marketing leads aren't good enough, sales isn't working them fast enough, that's a bad indicator for your board. It shows an immaturity that they don't like to see. I think the other problem is just being long-winded. And ironic, since I feel like I'm long-winded on a few of these questions, but if they ask you a question, the answer is yes, no, or I don't know the answer, but I can get back to you. And then you actually get back to them. Like, the more you try to bullshit and talk around in a circle, the more irritated everyone in the room gets. And it's okay to say, I don't know. Sometimes it builds trust, as long as you follow up with the right metrics on the timeline you say you will.
Well, beyond these presentations and these moments, how can CMOs cultivate strong ongoing relationships with both the CMO and board members?
I think before you present to the board and the CEO frequently, it seems like a scary mystery. But really, it's just another vehicle to help you run your business better. So the very best thing a CMO can do to have good relationships with the CEO and board is to have a strong strategy, a strong point of view, a very strong metrics dashboard where they can see on an ongoing basis trends and are understanding them. And then over time, share that in a brief and specific way with your CEO and board so that they come to trust you. And then, of course, there's all the things you can do, like you could pre-brief your board on your board deck with your CEO's permission to get feedback from the board members you think will be most engaged or have the most relevant experience. You could, with a CEO, depending on your role, if you're the CMO, you might meet with them very frequently, but you could send them frequent updates. This is what I said we were going to do. This is how it's going. This is what my hypothesis is to improve or exceed our goals. Like, doing a great job and doing what you say you're going to do and coming with a strategic and helpful point of view is one of the best ways to build the best relationships.
So if we turn our attention to the future and we think about like how is the role of the CMO evolving in relation to the board and the C-suite, uh, how do you see it evolving?
As a young marketer, I decided I wanted to be a CMO. I was working for a founder who was a CMO. I really respected him. And I kind of had the if someone's going to be, the leader, why shouldn't it be me? Naivete. And I had heard about GE having this executive leadership program where they took leaders at some stage and then rotated them to different GE departments every 2 years to give them a really strong view of the business from many different aspects. And those leaders were being groomed to be the top leaders, maybe the CEO. And without that experience in the different aspects of the business, it was very difficult to be a top business leader. So my translation of that was that to be a CMO, I needed to take a time in every individual function of marketing. So I spent several years in product marketing, several years in demand generation, several years in brand and creative. I was an enterprise sales rep myself at the beginning of my career. I've passed leads and written SDR scripts and worked on SDR dashboards. I've really done every aspect because I thought that's what you had to do to become a CMO. And I think that cross-training is invaluable because the role of the CMO has evolved so much from being like the advertising person who spent money to really being metrics driven, really being revenue driven, but also needing to really be product and company strategists. And those are tough roles to have together. And not everyone is an expert at both of them. But you need to know enough that you can hire the right people and ask the right questions and know when it's off track and really build out strength in both of them. Because as the CMO, those are both your responsibilities. If you're great at the strategy and bad at the metrics, you don't last very long. And if you're great at the metrics, but you don't have any strategy, all sorts of things happen where departments get taken out and given to other departments, or the CEO suddenly has a product marketing and strategy group reporting directly to them. And that kind of that really injures marketing because marketers need the best message to be in the right place at the right time and measured well to be successful.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. Like if you're thinking about what are the top 3 to 5 actionable tips you would want CMOs to implement immediately to improve both their CEO and their board communication, where would you start?
I think the first is to think like an investor. You've got to think of your company as an investment of money that is required to make a return. And so from that, how can you be really strategic about thinking how your company makes the biggest returns over the long run? Like, what are the big nuts that need to fall into place for you to be successful? So think strategic. That includes getting more involved in customer insights, sales insights, market insights. You can really earn a seat at the executive table by cultivating that intentionally. The second is to focus on metrics, not activities. To talk to the CEO, to talk to the board, you've got to get a consistent set of metrics that you all agree on, that are measured consistently, that show the outcome. Because you may need to write 100,000, you may need to write 100 blogs to get the 30% growth, or you might need 15 amazing blogs. It's like the activity doesn't matter. It's the outcome that matters. How do those leads translate to opportunities? How do those opportunities translate to close sales, and close sales to net dollar retention over time? Really thinking through the financials will make you a better marketer. And the third, which is critical, is one of the most critical executive skills, is just to learn to be brief, direct, specific, and give your audience the chance to ask for more information, but filter it, synthesize it, and boil it down for them.
Great advice. Great advice. I have one final question. You are part of the CMO Coaches organization. What advice would you give someone looking for a coach or an advisor?
When I was at Atlassian, we were growing really fast, and we were using this technique called product-led growth, which is more common now. It was very uncommon then. We were one of the first. And I was a young marketing leader, so I didn't have a strong network. And we weren't a very big spender, so we didn't have all these vendor events that I got to go to. And so I started trying to hire different coaches. And it was difficult to find coaches that had experience, either at the type of industry, at the next stage of growth I was going to, or who had really relevant information to the role I was doing. And I remember being in a meeting with a coach that I had at that time who was trying to help me with my leadership skills. And she asked me, "And how does that make you feel?" And I said, in my head, "It makes me feel like I want to talk to someone who knows how to do my job better than I do." And so I actually found CMO coaches looking for coaches myself of people who had already been CMOs. So I think it's really helpful to have a coach. Now, I call myself an advisor because I really do a lot more business strategy than I do coaching. If you wanted to learn about your personality or explore your leadership skills, there's less expensive ways to do that. But if you want to explore your leadership skills as it relates to the specifics of your business, it's great to hire a CMO coach that has that experience. And CMO Coaches has brought together an amazing community of some really fantastic CMOs that I respect and learn from every month.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your insights, your knowledge, and let us all be better at talking to our CEOs and working with our boards.
Thank you. And I just want to point people to my website, which is www.carilu.com, where I keep a blog with templates and information about how to be a hypergrowth leader. And then, of course, cmocoaches.com has links to our events and bios of all the different coaches. Thanks for having me.
This episode of Up Your Game is brought to you by CMO Coaches. If you want to work with a coach, visit cmocoaches.com. This episode is brought to you in collaboration with Club CMO. Club CMO is an exclusive member organization that brings together chief marketing officers, and other senior marketing executives for networking, knowledge sharing, and professional development. Through a peer-led, no-selling environment, the club provides exclusive access for marketing leaders to connect, exchange ideas, and stay up to date on industry trends and everyday challenges. This content was produced by Sam Robertson.